Okay, so I have a number of students who often ask me, particularly at the 1302 or 102, whatever the sophomore level of English you are taking with me ask me, how do you organize an essay? How do you structure an essay? I mean, these are things we talk about in the first level of composition 1, but we don't necessarily go over them in extreme detail. So a few resources that you can refer to help you if you don't want to rewatch this video continuously uh, is, of course, your composition and rhetoric guide has some great chapters on this process. The chapters in particular that you may want to look at actually are in section 2 on page 89, and specifically page 92 is extremely helpful. So if you are looking for help with how to start your essay, there's a great little summary of that on page 92. And then on 93, they have some great information about thesis statements. So what I'm going to do now is show you some of the basics of setting up a paper in MLA. I'm going to minimize my video recording software so that doesn't pull up. And there's actually something really neat on the most recent version of Microsoft Office. So if you have 2013 or later, you can actually type in the search box when you open it, MLA, and search, and they'll give you a template for an MLA style research paper. This is so extremely helpful because it's already set up for you and you basically just have to fill in the blanks. Now we might be doing some stuff with integrating images and charts and graphs later, so this will be extremely helpful for us as well. But you can use this now to just type in your basic information. So in this case you would type in your name. So I'm typing in my full name here. You would type in your instructor's name. You type in the course number. In your case, this is going to be an English 102, and whatever the section is. And I believe this section is W2Q. It's kind of a complicated Q section there, but it helps us keep things a bit organized. Now, any class that's in MLA format, you would do some kind of coding for there. So, and then the date, what I really like about this template is you just do that and it formats it for you. So it's already done. You want to double click up here, and where it says last name, you want to type your last name and now it'll appear. And then you want to double click down here, and whatever title you come up with, you want to come up with a interesting title. An interesting title, not something boring. You know, we don't go see movies that are named comedy or horror. We go to movies that have interesting titles like Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, things like that, things that hint at the meaning of the paper, the subject, the things we are discussing. You know, look at your readings. Your readings will give you some ideas for some good titles too. And then you're going to go in and, of course, indent every paragraph. And if you have any images or data you want to do this way, you can use this to help you set that up. And you notice it also has some information on how to set up in-text citations, and it has a place to put your works cited page and start setting that up. Now, this update citations, you can actually click on that, and it has a built-in bibliography, so you can switch. You want works cited, but you want to make sure that it's following the format as it appears in your book. And then you add citations. So, for example, to cite something from your textbook, that is actually going to be discovered by using your other textbook. So you have these three textbooks. You have the Composition and Rhetoric Guide, you have the Word and the Image, the World of the Image, and you have a Writer's Resource. Now there are different editions of the Writer's Resource, a Writer's Resource floating around. So you want to find the section labeled MLA, and you want to look for, I'm looking for it now as I'm lecturing for you, you want to look for the works cited entry for a, let's see, work in an anthology or textbook or chapter in an edited book. In the edition of a writer's resource I'm looking at right now, I'm looking at the 5th edition. Sometimes I'll look at the 4th edition. That page is listed as 306. So if you have the 5th edition, that's where you would go and look. If you don't have the 5th edition, you'll need to look for the MLA section of the writer's resource book and find this. And you see it's listed as number 8, that the citation begins with the author's name. So let's say one of the things you're using as support for your argument is Denise Grady's article on page 10 of the world of the image. You would type her last name, first name, then you would put the article title in quotes because it's the smaller object. So the title of the smaller object is always put in quotes. So the piece of a larger text is always signified by quotes. Let's see here. The vision thing. I'm trying to hold the book open and type at the same time, so forgive me if this is taking a bit of time. Mainly in the brain. And then you put a period here, even if the title doesn't have a period in it. And then the next piece of information you need is the title of the book itself. And of course our reader is called The World of the Image. So you would put The World of the Image with a period. Then after that you would need the editor's information. In this case we have 2 editors, so we would put EDS, and then we would put Trudy Smoke and Alan Robbins with a period. And then the last bit of information here is you need the name of the city of the press. So this is published by Pearson Longman. Pearson. You'll sometimes hear these referred to as Longman readers because that's part of the publisher. And the main city most books are published in anyway is New York. So you would put New York, Pearson, comma, the date of publication, which I believe this reader was published in 2012 last. Let me see. The copyright is typically found on the inside insert. This is actually older than that. Wow, this thing's almost 10 years old. 2007, and then you put the medium. And so that's how you cite an article that appears in your textbook. And then in text, you would put Grady and the page number, and that would tell me where to look. So you'll need to do that as you're setting up this paper. You notice this is already formatted in the correct paragraph spacing and double spacing, so you don't have to do any of that. But if you did need to do that, you can go to these little boxes up here, like where it says font, and you can set the standard font. So you could go in and you could change this to Garamond and hit 12 and hit set as default. You could change the paragraph here to 00 and double if you needed to, if you couldn't figure out how to find this template. But it's a new nice feature that they've done in Microsoft Office. It makes our lives a lot easier. So if you haven't downloaded the newest Microsoft Office, please look into that. You can use other word processing softwares, but their process for setting up an MLA formatted paper is a bit more complicated, and of course that would be your responsibility to figure out how to do that. If that is something you choose to do, on the 5th edition of a writer's resource on page 331 there is a model paper, or you can actually go and search out a website called OWL at Purdue, and you can put in the MLA information here. And this is really, really helpful. And you see there it has a link to a model paper. It has basic rules for 2009. Now they are releasing an update at MLA this year, so some of these rules might change in the next year or so. But you have basics like sample works cited, sample paper. You can download that. It might not appear in my browser. Here, let me show you. Yeah. And the great thing about this is it has glosses that explain how to format it. So, but it's really easy to format in Microsoft Office. So be sure that you do download that. Again, you can try other softwares, but it's typically going to be complicated if you do that. Now, when you get ready to save this, though, whatever software you use, go to File, Save As. Now, you're going to want to put here, it's going to be a little different on any computer, but you're going to want to go to whatever your desktop is. You're going to want to save this as ENGL 102 Prospectus, and then put whatever your last name is. And make sure that it says docx down here. Now, those of you that might be using Pages on a Mac, you need to go in and do the save as and save it as a docx. If you're using an open office, you'll want to go in and save as this way so that you don't have this problem. You click save, you save it as a desktop to the desktop, and you can see it right there. There it is on my desktop. And then when you get ready to submit it, you would just drag that into the assignment at the submission stage. So that's the basics of setting up your paper and organizing your paper. Of course, I do want to emphasize the importance of reading 92 and 93 and the composition and rhetoric guide as a guidance for you for getting started. A lot of these things you should have already done in 1301, and that's why we're not spending a lot of time with them. One of my simple formulas I like to teach students is, let me delete all this so you can see it, so this doesn't confuse you. I'll leave the works cited. Is I set up this formula for my essays, and it goes topic sentence, example, explanation, transition. And this is just a general structure, but what this helps me to do is to think about how I'm going to organize all this data I have floating around in my head. So I'll have a thesis statement, which is my central argument of my paper, something along the lines of an image is a construct, it's not real, and the only meaning that images have are those that we give them. You know, that would be my thesis. And so underneath that, I would say this concept can be proved by the physiology of the eye. And then I would talk about Grady's essay, Denise Grady's essay about the different structures of the eye and how vision changes. And I would use that quote. See how that moved into the example? I'd use quotes from that reading, and I'd explain how those quotes actually help to support my position. I wouldn't just say, oh, they support my position. I'd actually explain, show my thought process, and then I transition into the next idea. And that's the basic structure. You do that for 3 body paragraphs. You have an introductory paragraph that introduces the idea, sets up your thesis. You have your 3 body paragraphs that are set up like this, right? And then you have your conclusion, which reiterates the thesis, explains its importance, answers the so what question. Why should I read this paper? Why should I continue contemplating this topic? And then your paper's done. You know, and the reason these papers are longer is because you are integrating research into them, so that's something to keep in mind. So as always, email me if you have any questions, or actually use that discussion forum for this class. That's at the Q&A discussion forum, and we'll use that to discuss these concepts. That's the easiest way to do it, so we don't clutter up email boxes and I don't accidentally miss an email conversation that we have. And also ask your peers in the discussion boards, because that's an important way to help you with your discussions.